I met my girlfriend on a dating app 4 years ago. Before we were together, I would swipe through apps like Tinder all the time. Mostly just try and find someone from my phone. I would talk to someone now and then, but it never really panned out to be much. As soon as I saw my girlfriend's profile, I thought she was stunning. Her bio caught my attention too. I knew right away that I wanted to talk to her. So I swiped right and we matched. I took my shot and I messaged her, partially not even expecting her to respond. To my surprise, she messaged me back less than an hour later, and both of us really gelled during our first conversations. I was getting my hopes up a little. She was a beautiful girl, and we seemed to get along. After chatting for a little while, she told me that she was only in town for a week on business. I was bummed because I thought she was really awesome, and it sucked to hear that nothing would really come of our relationship. She told me that she wanted to meet me while she was there. So we got together at her hotel room and we hooked up. It was just as amazing as I thought it would be. So I gave her my number and told her that we should keep in touch. I didn't think at the time that we would be starting a long-distance relationship, but after she left, that's what it blossomed into. Even though we didn't get to see each other often, I was extremely happy knowing that she was my girlfriend. She had a very rigorous work schedule, and her time off never seemed to coincide. Admittedly, I was somewhat blinded by my attraction to her, so there were a lot of things that I overlooked in the beginning of our relationship. For example, the first time that I ever visited her house, I noticed some weird things inside. There were 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom, which was a little strange considering she lived by herself. On top of that, there was a more masculine scented shaving cream under the sink as well. I asked her about the toothbrush, and she just told me that it was an old one that she hadn't thrown away. I believed her. I didn't really have any reason to think much else about it. I spent the rest of the weekend with her and ended up going back home, happier than ever. I genuinely liked her, and I wanted to move in with her because I saw a future with us. Every time I would broach the subject, she would tell me that it was too soon in our relationship. The first time I asked, it had been about a year. The second time, we've been together for 3 years. Personally, 3 years is not a short amount of time for me. It felt like it was the next step in our relationship to live together. We had been long distance that entire time because I was waiting to move in with her. I ended up just deciding to move closer to her, regardless. If we couldn't live together, we could at least live in the same city. When I told her that I was moving, she acted like it was some surprise, and told me that I shouldn't have done something like that for her. Her reaction kind of shocked me. I assumed she would be happy to have me closer to her. Even though I was living so close to her, I still only saw her occasionally. I understood that she was busy, but at the same time, I didn't quite get why we couldn't spend nights together at each other's apartments. After a few months of being closer, it started to click with me that something else might have been going on. I had read crazy outlandish stories about people who lived double lives and carried on affairs, having families in different states, etc. I didn't want to believe that could be what was happening there, but my mind started to do its own thing. I learned the truth all because of a dumb joke that I made. My girlfriend and I were out to dinner, and we were having a good time. I asked her if she wanted to go back to her house after we finished eating, and she said no. Then I made a joke commencing on how she didn't want me to be there because of her husband and children. She got really silent for a moment and put her food down like she couldn't believe why it said. Then she said, "How long have you known?" I laughed for a moment, thinking she was making some deadpan joke back at me. After a couple of moments, I realized she was being serious. I asked for some clarity, and she explained everything. She wasn't happy to do it, but I was glad everything was finally in the open. She told me that she did, in fact, have a husband and a son. She didn't get along with her mother-in-law, so whenever her husband wanted to take their son to see her, she would reach out to me. That was the opportunity she had to be with me. Everything made sense when she told me. That's why she didn't want me to move to her city, much less moving with her. It was why she was only sporadically available to see me. Right away, I told her that I wasn't okay with what she was doing. and I told her that I was done with her. I also insinuated that I was going to tell her husband about everything. She wished me luck with that, and we both left the restaurant. When I got back to my house to try and look into her life to find out who her husband was, I realized she gave me a fake name. The entire time I was with her, she was pretending to be somebody that she wasn't. She carried on a full affair, using a fake name, and everything, and I never noticed. I eventually gave up trying to figure out who she really was. I hadn't even thought about it for a few months. My friend back home messaged me out of the blue one day with a screenshot of a Tinder profile. It was my ex-girlfriend. There was a different name associated with the account and the age was different than why I knew her to be as well. The pictures and bio were exactly the same. My friend recognized her from pictures that I had shown him and asked me if we were still together or if we broken up. He thought that she might have been trying to cheat on me, so he wanted to make sure everything was good. I called him right away and explained everything to him. He was as shocked to find out about it as I was. After that, we came up with a little bit of a plan to try and catch her. He ended up matching with her and they started talking. It's kind of funny, but I ended up telling him a lot of the things to say that I knew would work on her. She pulled the same thing that she had with me, telling him that she was only in town for a certain amount of time and asked to meet up with him. All I needed my friend to do was send me the screenshots from her Tinder profile and possibly get a good look at her ID when she wasn't looking. The last part was going to be pretty difficult. I waited patiently for any news about what was happening. About 2 hours into the date that they were supposed to have, my friend texted me with a photo of her ID. I know there is a huge privacy concern, but I wasn't going to do anything with it other than look up her husband. I had her name, her real address, and all the information I needed to find her. I searched for her online and lo and behold found out that she had a real estate business with her husband. They were prominent members of their community. Both of them even served as chairs in the homeowners association. She had a lot to lose, and I was about to take it all from her. I knew I had a couple of days before she would be coming back to the city. So I reached out to her husband as quickly as I could to try and meet up with him. I didn't know what to say, so I sent him a message with all of the information. It was kind of unbelievable, and I didn't really even expect him to listen to everything I had to say. Thankfully, I had some evidence that I could in the form of our text message exchanges as well as the Tinder profile and some pictures she and I had swapped over the years. It took a few hours, but he eventually responded and agreed to meet up with me. We met at a coffee shop the following morning, and he looked like he wanted to tear my head off of my body. I swore to him that I knew nothing about him or his family. I think after a few minutes he believed me. He even confessed that there were some signs that she was having an affair that he overlooked for the sake of his own family. Given the extent of how far she went, I think she proved herself to be completely untrustworthy. That was probably what really opened his eyes. I told him that he deserved better than her. She was clearly a monster for what she'd done. I could hardly wrap my mind around how selfish her actions were. I gave him everything I could help him if he decided he wanted to pursue a divorce. I even told him that if he needed someone to talk to about it without judging him, I was there. Surprisingly, he actually took me up on that offer, and we chatted about it quite a bit while he was going through his divorce. Over everything they went through, it was clear that I wasn't even the first guy she had an affair with. It was some way for her to escape the responsibilities of motherhood and her business without consequence at the time. Unfortunately, for her, it all backfired. After their divorce, their joint business went under. However, the husband was able to continue representing a lot of people from their neighborhood. Everybody knew what happened and she was ostracized for most of the community. She ended up moving into a one-bedroom apartment and has an entry-level position at another firm in a different county. I can't believe you went through something like this. This was just a crazy story from start to finish. Nobody would ever expect that somebody they're in a relationship with is living a double life like this, but it does happen. I can't blame you for not seeing the signs. It's especially hard to do it when you are blinded by your love for someone. I definitely think that her not wanting to move in with you was one of the first major red flags. Right away, I knew she was hiding something big when I read that. I think your plan with your friend was very smart. Getting her real name and being able to find her husband was exactly what you needed to do to right the situation. I'm glad he was able to talk to you about the things that he was going through after the fact. I can't even imagine what he was going through finding out all of this about his wife. I really wish you the best moving forward, and the same for her ex-husband. Now let's move on to our next story. I met my wife in college and instantly knew that I wanted to be with her for the rest of my life. Aside from the usual stuff, like thinking she was cute and fun to be around, she was incredible in bed. I know that sounds like the most shallow, worst reason to want to marry someone, but it was something else. She was everything that I ever wanted, and falling for her wasn't hard. She was actually the first one to say I love you in our relationship. And ever since then, we had been discussing marriage and starting a family together. Her sex drive has always been abnormal to me. Don't get me wrong. When I was younger and in college, I absolutely loved it. We would sleep together sometimes 5 times a day because she simply couldn't get enough. It only continued the longer we were together. Normally, you would expect something like that to slow down a bit as you settle into a relationship. It just never died with her. I know that a lot of our friends were envious of our relationship in that respect, but it was exhausting. It actually hit a point where I started to worry that there was something deeper going on. If we weren't having sex, she was thinking about it. She was texting me about it. It was constant. She ended up going to a therapist, and they told her that she had a hypersexual disorder, which, if you don't know what that means, it's what people used to call nymphomania. It honestly explained so much about her libido, and finally hearing that from a professional rationalized a lot of the more negative feelings I had about it. The therapist told her that for the most part, it was manageable, though it could sometimes lead to sexual addictions. She just joked about it at first, telling me that she was a sex addict, and there was nothing she could do about it. If that was the case, I genuinely wanted to help her. Addiction is hard to deal with no matter what kind it is. I sat her down one day, and we had a long talk about all of it. I told her that I thought it would be good if there were some changes and that I was worried about her. In the end, we decided that we wouldn't sleep together for a week, and we would see how she was doing at the end of it. She had a hard time during the week. I think it confirmed a lot of the suspicions that I have that her actions were bordering on an addiction. But from what I could tell, she ended up getting through it. At the end of the week, she was just excited to be with me. She was in therapy around the same time, so I knew I wasn't trying to control her behavior or anything. On top of therapy, I helped to orchestrate somewhat of a schedule for having sex. That way we could make sure it wasn't something she constantly getting to help discourage the addictive behavior. Everything was going well for about 3 months. I thought that she was recovering from everything, and it felt like we were in a good place with our relationship. While she was at therapy one day, I was doing a little bit of work around the house, and I heard some notifications going off on her computer. She normally didn't leave it on, so it was a little weird, but I didn't think much of it. The notifications just kept going off though. After about 10 minutes of that, I was getting annoyed, so I went to shut her laptop so I wouldn't hear the noise anymore. While I was looking at her screen, I caught a glimpse of the messages. They were Discord messages in an NSFO Discord channel that were all extremely sexual. She posted a picture in one of the channels, and all of the notifications I heard were pings being sent to her. When I looked at the picture, my heart broke into a million pieces. It was an explicit picture of her giving head to another guy. There were a bunch of people commenting on, saying things like "I wish that was me," and she was role-playing openly with all of these random people. I searched her name on the server to try and figure out what exactly was going on there. She had uploaded several pictures all with the same man. In one of them, she added a comment about how she seduced her therapist. I had never met her therapist, so I wasn't 100% positive that was actually him. If it was, there was a huge moral and ethical violation there. Right away, I looked up her therapist to see if it looked like the guy in the pictures. It did. She had been sleeping with her therapist all these times. She told me she was going to work on her recovery. The more I looked at her computer, the more evidence I found that she never took anything I said seriously. There were countless private chats with people from that server where they were role-playing and exchanging pictures. She had been using Michael to chat with strangers. And no doubt to sexual things online with them. I had no idea her problems ran as deep as they did. I didn't know if these chats and messages started before I talked to her about her possible addiction or after. Regardless, it was unacceptable. There was so much for me to go through that I must have been sitting at her desk for hours. She actually came home while I was looking. She found me in front computer and saw what I was looking at. I told her that I wanted her out, and there was nothing she could do to sway my mind about that. She just tried to blame her actions on her hypersexual disorder. I thought it was complete bull. I kicked her out of the house for the night, and immediately started trying to figure out what to do about her therapist. I looked over a credit card statement to see if he was still being paid by us. As it turned out, he was. The man went to school for many years to be a therapist and was dumb enough to sleep with a patient while still being paid by them. If he had any brains, he would have at least terminated her as a client first. It wasn't clear if I would have any grounds to sue him because he was sleeping with my wife, but I proper channels that I found online. I also called the office and spoke to one of the management staff about it. On top of all of that, he was married. I was certain that after losing his practice and potentially his license, his wife would find out about what he did, and hopefully she would leave him. As for my wife, I didn't care if she still needed help with her recovery at that point. She made a conscious decision to cheat on me and undermine her vows, so I had no choice but to leave her. Genuinely, I hope she gets help. She is somebody that I've had a lot of love for, and I don't want to see her hurting in any way. But I can't be a part of her life if that's how she's going to behave. We finalized the divorce, and I ended up selling the house that we lived in. Because I couldn't stand knowing that something could have happened there that I didn't know about. OP. I'm so sorry you had to go through all of this. Sex addiction isn't something that a lot of people talk about, but it is something that has destroyed families in the past. That behavior can get compulsive for people, and it's hard to turn that switch off. That being said, it's never okay to cheat on your spouse because of it. It seems like you did everything you could have to try and help her when you realized there was something going on. It's hard to say for certain, but it sounds like she really didn't want to change. It's impossible to get better with things like this if the affected person isn't willing to put in the effort. The fact that her therapist was sleeping with her is absolutely abhorrent. That is a major violation of trust, and it is exceptionally unethical. It's a good thing that you reported them to make sure they would be taken care of properly. Your wife might not have even been the first person they crossed that boundary with. I know everything that you went through was probably a lot to process, but whenever you are ready to move on with your life, I really hope you were able to move past this and find someone else who can make you happy. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not